Our snob Taoiseach wouldn't even stand up to address a working class TD. Gino Kenny TD was raising the plight of families with sick children who need access to medicinal cannabis. The government has dragged their feet for over 2 years now, and people are having to sell their homes to get access to this medicine for their kids. Leo Varadkar wouldn't even look up, wouldn't even dignify him with an appropriate answer. It just shows the contempt that Varadkar has for working class people. Gino Kenny is a TD for the Clondalkin area. About 2 years ago, he put forward a medicinal cannabis bill, giving access to sick children, people going through chemotherapy, people who just want to relieve pain, parents of children with epilepsy, where studies have shown medicinal cannabis can limit the seizures. Gino's bill was passed with majority support in the Dáil, but Fine Gael have left the bill in limbo for over 2 years, and then came back with their own proposal for a medicinal cannabis access programme. A very limited programme that will only allow people to access in very limited circumstances. And even then, they've dragged their feet on that. For months they've been saying they can't find a supplier until they eventually found a private company in Denmark that will supply them with medicinal cannabis. The fact that the government has been delaying the access programme was raised by their buddies in Fianna Fáil, who asked them to hurry up a bit. Varadkar gave Micheál Martin a curt reply. But his reply to Gino Kenny was even worse. And when Varadkar was questioned on the media about saying same reply without even looking up or without getting up from his seat, he said, "In the British Parliament, the Prime Minister doesn't have to get up from their seat." Well, I've got news for you, Varadkar. This isn't Britain, and you're not Maggie Thatcher. The worst aspect of this is the disregard for sick children. I mean, a County Sligo family have been forced to sell their house because they can't afford medicine for their sick child. And the HSE has refused reimbursement. John and Mary Stevens in Waterford have a sick child, and the HSE won't reimburse the medicinal cannabis, and they don't have the cash to continue the treatment, so they're just going to have to stop. But it's no surprise in a country so controlled by the corporations. I mean, the vulture funds control our housing policy, landlords dictate the level of rents, the oil and fossil fuel companies prevent serious action on climate change, and the big pharmaceutical companies make sure that medicines are under their control. The big pharmaceutical corporations spent 15 million in 1 year alone lobbying in Brussels. The European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries and Associations sits on 8 European commissions, has had 112 top-level meetings with the EU, and has 60 access passes to the EU Parliament. The EU even set up a 100 billion fund called Horizon Europe, which is basically a slush fund for research on behalf of the pharmaceutical companies. A free gift from the taxpayers of Europe to these giant corporations. When left-wing MEPs in the European Parliament put down motions opposing this slush fund, Fine Gael voted those amendments down. The Irish Pharmaceutical Healthcare Association lobbies Irish politicians and has lobbied the HSE. For example, making sure that generic medicines don't upset their patents and profit rates. Back in 2012, the industry even threatened Enda Kenny, saying that if the HSE didn't pay for their expensive drugs, that there would be unintended consequences for employment in Ireland, using the fact that the corporations employ people to strong-arm the government into doing what they want. 24 of the world's top 25 biotech and pharmaceutical firms are based here in Ireland, and they use their influence over the political system and the HSE to corrupt the political system and the HSE. Irish doctors were paid 10.7 million by big pharmaceutical companies, and 3.7 million of that was for undisclosed reasons. But basically, they're paying doctors, bribing doctors to prescribe medicine belonging to these corporations. And then that medicine is given to the HSE, overcharging the taxpayers of Ireland. And the more that people like Mary Harney and Simon Harris and these neoliberal health ministers run our health service into the ground, the more it becomes a feeding ground for these pharmaceutical companies and corporations. Fine Gael have been shamed into the medicinal cannabis access programme by campaigners like Vera Toomey, by media coverage of sick children in need. They know that it doesn't look bad to keep blocking it, but they're torn between this bad PR and bad publicity and their loyalty to the corporations. And that's why they're dragging their feet. Because whenever they're asked to put people first, to put people before the profits of the corporations, they find it hard to do anything that would affect the profits of their real masters. You see, the Fine Gael politicians don't answer to us, they answer to the corporations.